Thank you to my panelists. Thank you, everyone. We're excited to be talking about the ROI of AI, or as near as we can come to talking about it. As the subtitle of our session suggests, cutting through the noise to find value, I suspect that this is a moment in which we might make the effort to look at all of the froth generated by our global excitement about AI and try to apply some gravity or sense of reality principle. There are, after all, costs that come with these benefits, and it would be wonderful if we or anyone could calculate them in advance. The funny thing about AI at this moment in its infancy is that no one can, not to ruin the surprise of our session. But it's been given to me to understand that we should really be thinking of ROI not, as I started with my questions, in terms of quarterly revenues. It's much too soon for anyone to answer such hard questions as that, but to think more strategically about the kind of enormous imponderables in terms of, yes, money, but also time, strategic mind space, all the different things that a business leader needs to prioritize as they lean into or try to defend themselves from this new age of AI. So before we turn to the ROI, understood figuratively, before we look at the cost part of a cost-benefit analysis, I thought it might be useful to go around to our panelists, who each represent a very different kind of business struggling with these questions, and ask them to explain some of the benefits, some of the reason behind the excitement, the need of the hour, and the sense of urgency that for almost everyone AI is bringing with it. If I may then, in lieu of formal introductions one by one, I'm going to just dive in with these questions. I'd like to start with Saurabh, please. If you could tell us, coming from Intuit, what sort of challenge or opportunity is presented to AI when it comes to petabytes, the kind of data on the scale that your operations depend on. How does such enormous quantity of data necessitate your leap into AI now?
Absolutely, Alex. And first of all, thank you so much, Zinnov, and Alex, to you for bringing this panel. This is such a relevant topic to all of us. I think most of the companies right now are grappling with this in terms of what is our investment on AI, how to calculate if you are going to get the value. Different industries are at a different place right now. Some of us who are in the fintech industry, we feel we are too late, and we really need to move fast. And Alex, you talked about the 95 petabyte of data that we deal with. If I translate into something simple language, it's about 400 years of non-stop recording of 4K videos. That's the quantum of data that we are dealing with. Now, before I talk about how AI and data is helping us, let me give a little context about Intuit, because that will help us understand on why we are generating so much of data and how we are using that data. Intuit is a global financial tech platform company. We are born 40 years back, and we are a 40 years old startup. We serve small businesses, consumers, and we serve over 100 million customers worldwide. It's very strange as we are growing into the industry of AI to realize that Intuit was born as a DOS company 40 years back. And Intuit is known as a company that always tries to disrupt itself, because we believe that there is always an opportunity to understand where the future is going to be and invest onto those future. So we moved from DOS era to an era of web, era of desktop, era of cloud computing. And for the last 6 years, we have declared our strategy as AI native expert-driven company. So essentially, the strategy of the company for 5 years right now is AI and HI, the human intelligence and also the artificial intelligence. Now, the question is that why and how we got into the space of AI 6 years back. By the way, AI has been there for decades, many more decades, and Gen AI has been recently over there. The context is that we are in a business in the financial institute where we need to do a lot of analysis around prediction, around how exactly the company growth can be, what is the churn models. And that's one of the reasons we started investing on the AI first. And it's strange enough, very quickly we realized that before we even invest and think about investing on AI, the data is going to be the key. And investment on data was so big that we have to make multiple attempts to make sure that our data is clean. What I mean by clean data is that it can serve your purpose. It's actually refreshed. You know the lineage of the data. In terms of magnitude, for example, every single year, we import about 25 billion transactions for banks. This is the amount of volume we are generating. We invested about 3 years in cleansing up of the data, and then we got into the zone of hyper-personalization. Hyper-personalization is a way by which I can actually target my customers really, really well. So for example, Alex, if you get a note from Intuit, you will feel that Intuit knows about you. You'll feel that Intuit understands where you are, what you want to do, how you want to grow. To give a context on this, it requires us think about an attributes or think about how much we know about the customers. As of today, Intuit has 580,000 attributes per small business. For single business, we maintain 580,000 attributes. For single consumer, we maintain 60,000 attributes. Now, if you're dealing with this amount of data, it's almost impossible, humanly impossible, for us to accelerate the business. I'll just close on by saying a few things. As of last year, we have generated about 65 billion machine learning prediction for our customers. 65 billion predictions. Now, think about this. If you are in a small business, if you are running a company, the most important thing that you want to know is your cash flow. How much money I have in my hand. There will be a year or there will be a quarter when you have enough money to invest. And the biggest question our customers are dealing with, what should I do? Should I raise the price of the product and improve the ARPC? Or should I acquire new customers? How exactly a small business, or you, if you are running a business, can decide, where should I put my marketing dollars? What if we have a system that tells you that, tell us what is the period, what is the time, money you have, and I will guarantee you that I will kind of create a system for you so that by the end of this period, you will be 10% more profitable. Think about a situation where other customers' problem, for example, customers are telling us that it takes a lot of time for receiving the payments from their customers. So think about a system that can actually automate those payments reminders in a different note, and finally then help you to receive your payment faster. And guess what? As of today, all of these things are live. All of these things are in production, and every single thing was based on the amount of investment we have done on the data. And that's probably a 5 to 6 year journey that really helped us to there.
Thank you. A lot of imponderable scale there. 5 or 6 years, though, is the kind that you end on, which reminds me of my question for Suma. Working in pharmaceuticals, where your runways are even longer, you're looking at 15 years, I think?
Approximately, yes.
For a target or a drug. How can you begin to consider what sort of investment is justified in AI now when you're trying to predict where you'll be for each one of these targets 15 years from now?
Yeah, that is a really great question, and I just have to thank the organizers here, the Zinnov team, because coming in here, I have been able to listen to conversations around how different industries are adopting AI, and these are lessons learned, right? We're going to take all of these back. So just coming back to the pharmaceutical world, I'll just touch on briefly what Lexicon is as a company and then take it from there. So Lexicon was founded back in 1995, so 30-year-old. We consider ourselves to be a 30-year-old startup. That's the mode we are in. And it was founded on a very audacious dream of identifying novel targets for human disease. And the way we decided to go about it was to systematically knock out about 5,000 genes, one at a time, in mice, and that we accomplished over about a 13-year period. So about 500 to 700 people, depending on the time frame you're looking at, were invested in doing this. And the beauty of it was, unlike what Saurabh has, we have exceptionally well-organized data, because these were very, very systematically collected. And these knockout mice were generated and put through a battery of tests, anything as simple as a normal blood work you would do, to really sophisticated DEXA scans and MRIs. So all of these images, all of these data points, you can trace the pedigree of a mouse. I know it sounds probably really weird out here, but you can trace the pedigree of a mouse down to the first generation. So that is the extent of the data we have, about 1 petabyte of data, from which, as Lexicon evolved, we then transformed ourselves into a biopharmaceutical company, and we drugged them, took them into the clinical trials, and now we have approved drugs on the market. But at the same time, this wealth of data is sitting with us. It is proprietary data, something only we have access to, right? And what we are looking at then is these timelines. So you start from identifying a novel target to treat human disease, which is exceptionally difficult. You go through all of that testing, then you get into human clinical trials, phase 1, 2, and 3, until you get an approved drug. Approximately takes you about 15 years, with a success rate of less than 15%. So that is what you're up against, right? So anything we can do in this time frame to either reduce that time, increase success, or reduce cost, anything is going to be exceptionally beneficial, and this is across the pharmaceutical industry. So for us, when we looked at this, is we had this wealth of data, and this was the best place. So we can't humanly mine to try and get the insights we are looking for here. We have over years thought about, it would be great if we could just take right now the big craze, right? Weight loss. Wouldn't it be fascinating for us to be able to look at this, which, by the way, back in the day, there was a Newsweek article based on our knockout mice, way back where we had a jumbo 747 versus a slim mouse. So this was ancient times. That data is there. So we have all of this data. Wouldn't it be fascinating if we could just plot all of this information across these 5,000 lines and see which one could be even more potent? Are there ones that have added on benefits like increased muscle mass, benefits on cardiovascular performance? Wouldn't it be really great? Now, humanly, that was just not possible to go and mine this data. But now with AI, it's easy, right? You are able to visualize more than one parameter just simply by the click of a button. So when we look at it, what would take us manually years to come up with that next good target? We can do it at scale. It's something unprecedented. So for us, it was honestly a no-brainer. You want to take part of your R&D budget and put it towards this. It makes perfect sense to be able to get that. So that is that first step of it. But in the R&D process, there are so many different parts of it which can benefit from the use of AI. But this is where our focus is right now.
Yeah, that you can put some of your R&D on it was a no-brainer.
Some of our
How
R&D.
much?
Not the whole thing, because we have a steady R&D process already ongoing. We have clinical trials ongoing. All of those have to keep going, but where your pure research budget comes in, let us focus on trying to get these, because this is going to feed our pipeline. It's going to funnel our pipeline. So.
Thank you. Both you and Saurabh have been discussing petabytes of existing data that humans can't begin to grapple with. Dipesh, I was impressed by one of the examples you described to me from your work at Havells, that in fact, when we move from the world of data sets to physical design, there might be as many opportunities, even though we're talking about problems that till now have been solved entirely by humans. Can you tell us about and I know you've worked on the other side of this also, the transition from AI for from data-based projects to physical projects?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much. I am not from GCC. I am now joined an Indian company, Havells India Limited. Thanks, Pari, for inviting here today. Data is given, okay? Last 2 days, every presentation that comes here talks about data. And the amount of investment, amount of infrastructure and talent invested in it, this assume it's a solved problem in a year, 3 years. There's a big opportunity lying, yet a disruption has not happened there. That's the engineering. I mean, I am now moved from a digital world where, voice, vision, data, all of this digital world had seen AI. But now where I work, we are designing mixer grinders, we are designing, lights, we are designing fans. These areas completely, like just native. You can go and apply AI. Every day you go to office, you feel like you can change this field forever. And till date, most of the experienced, designers, they know some physical constraints that they simply apply. Oh, these are the 5 types of forces. This is the fluid flow. That's the thermal simulation. Just based on their experience and constraint, they try to design. But like she said, if we attempt something humanly impossible, that's when the value unlock will happen about the AI. So if we combine, let's say, lifestyle, some company in India, if we are designing mixer grinder for here, they don't know what kind of mixer grinder is required in, let's say, Dubai, China, or US. The foundation model knows the world. You just need to pick up the lifestyle from there, apply your knowledge, pick up all the physics knowledge, pick up all the latest tools knowledge, latest material knowledge, bring this knowledge together. That's what foundation model knows about. So if someone can understand, we have to skill our people, of course, to get that knowledge out from there and completely re-engineer. I think India, you just heard from Sudhanshu Mani just before here, India is happening, okay? When it comes to manufacturing, every place you go, India is happening right now. Every company that's about 500 to 2,000 crores in revenue, they're investing in manufacturing. And if there is one place where big disruption need to happen, that's manufacturing, and that's by using AI. Because suppose by August 1st, I was just asking Alex, assume what could be the tariff structure between India and US. If it's about, let's say, 25%, actually it won't make any difference for India because if China is at 35, we are at 25, there's no difference because in cost terms, the 10% benefit they already have. You can never catch up that. Maybe if it comes to 20, you have some chance, about 5%, but that 5% will go in improving the quality of your products. So again, you are back to, no gains. 15 is when floodgates will open from India to US. Every company that has like 500 crore, 1,000 crore, 2,000 crore revenue can generate 3 times their current revenue just from US. And to unlock that, the knowledge that's there in the foundation model, the knowledge of the tools, knowledge of the material, knowledge of physics, knowledge of lifestyle of American people, if you use that knowledge out of AI, put it in your product, completely change it, this will be a game changer for India. So I really invite, don't look at only digital world for innovation. There is a lot of things to solve in the physical world and not just in manufacturing. CRM, defect density, visual inspection, even if we don't solve it, trust me, somebody will solve it in Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. If we want to use the talent of the country, we have to go and solve those problems that for decades are unsolved. Okay, the mixer grinder 15 years before, mixer grinder today, there is no difference. You still get those 5 blades. And most of the people throw away the 4 blades, they use 1 blade for everything. Because it's so inconvenient and there is no solution to this problem. But imagine a hair dryer, I don't need one, but anyway. But if you have a hair dryer that comes closer, it understands your texture and changes the RPM, changes the heat, changes the flow. There is so much AI can do in the physical world. I would really invite some GCC guys, don't tell your headquarters, develop this in the back end, and one day, throw up a surprise. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dipesh. Now, Deepak, you coming from Pega, I think, might be in a position to explain some kinds of businesses apart from even the three that our other panelists represent. And tell us, maybe explain for my benefit too, what different kinds of solutions you're offering when you're presenting, be it Pega Gen I blueprint or Pega's agentic approach. I'm only just coming to terms with what the difference between one set of offerings or another is.
Sure. Fundamentally, if you step back and think about, for us specifically at Pega, AI is not something that is new. We've actually been leveraging what we typically refer to as statistical AI, when the traditional way of using the models in terms of a prediction for adaptive analytics and what have you, especially leveraging NLP. We've been doing that for about 10, 12 years now. Especially to make real-time decisions. That's kind of what we had been actually doing as part of our offering. What it has allowed us to do is to transition easily to be able to leverage some of the advancements that have come up in terms of whether it is generative AI or agentic AI or what have you, and act quickly on it to be able to build that into our products, to be able to offer that. Fundamentally, when I look back and think about AI applications in terms of where, I look at like two broad categories, right? One is things that you've actually been doing, but you can do better, right? I mean, the story about, Henry Ford apparently went and asked about when he wanted to build the first car, he asked some of the people in terms of who wanted improvements in their ability to commute from point A to point B. And the biggest answer he got from the entire group was they wanted faster horses. They would use horses, they just wanted faster horses, right? So there is that class of AI, easily the lower hanging fruits of being able to do the existing things, faster, better, whatever. That's all happening or happened already in the last couple of years. You will see use cases like querying, summarization, all of that is actually very, very pervasive today. But the biggest thing is the other class, which is really transformative in terms of ability to do things that you wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. Just like what Dr. Umar talked about. Nobody would have even thought of being able to accelerate that amount of, being able to process that amount of data, what takes about 13, 15 years in terms of the elapsed time, how much can you benefit? Imagine, you could potentially bring drug molecules into, to a medicine for that matter in a much shorter time frame. So we embarked on that aspect of technology leverage to be able to do two things, right? Two or three things in that sense. For example, the Pega, Gen AI blueprint that you talked about is one such revolutionary technology, we believe, that allows to address one of the hardest parts of your software development cycle. One of the hardest parts in terms of to conceive an idea and be able to really put that idea down without having to go through a lot of cycles as far as how to document it, be able to collaborate with someone in IT or the technology side to actually build what you want them to build, and to be able to see what the prototype without having to realize that, oh, that's not what I wanted to start with, right? So how can you actually do this whole process in a matter of hours? So this is actually a tool, a SaaS tool that's available on Pega.com that is free for anybody to actually go and try for that matter. It's actually creating a path for people to do things that they would otherwise never have thought about. In the sense that, let's say, take something we refer to as legacy transformation. A lot of companies actually have applications they've been, running for 30, 40 years, for decades, and nobody wants to touch it because nobody knows who wrote the code, and then there is nobody to fix anything, if they break something for that matter, right? So, but now, all you have to do is, if you have some documentation, or if you can actually take a video of the entire application that can explain what the flow of that application is, and you can actually throw it into Blueprint, it can actually give you an idea of what that application would look like if you were to reimagine that whole application, right? So that's something we refer to as legacy transformation. We also actually have leveraged, agentic capabilities. A lot of people talk about agentic capabilities, a lot of organizations do, where they do discrete type of work units, if you will, and they are independent of each other. We believe the value is actually when these agents are working in a collaborative way, within a workflow, to be able to stitch together end-to-end, use cases that go all the way. Right? You can actually look at these, there are 4 major capabilities, I would say, right? There are, co-pilot kind of capabilities that accelerate development. There are coach capabilities that can actually help coach the end users in terms of what they need or guide them. There is what we call as analyze, which really gives you an ability to have a conversation about the data, not just data, but insights. How do you derive insights from that data, right? Those kind of capabilities that are built, and automate, of course, to be able to automate anything that you have. But the fun part is when these agents actually work together. That's really a way to be able to have AI collaborate and to actually have an Uber, what we refer to as an agent fabric that can help you manage the agents. Everyone will have a multi-agent scenario. It's not going to be one single agent that can actually perform all of your tasks. So how do you manage that? How do you execute the right workflows? How do you access the right agent? And then what do you do with that? I think that is all the work we have actually been doing, which I believe addresses a lot of that second class of the problems that I talked about, which allows you to do transformative things that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do.
Great, thank you. It's time now, if not past time, for me to wrench us back to the proposed topic or subtopic. I'm going to start with Dipesh in trying to do this, even though he was about the most forthright in telling me you just can't do it. What I mean is, all of these wonderful benefits must come at costs. That means you guys are in positions where you have to make decisions about which costs are worth bearing. But you point out that there's really an even bigger choice here, an existential choice, which is wait or jump in. Can you explain what you mean by that? And I mean, when you put it that way, it sounds like there's only one reasonable answer. Does that mean we all know what to do here?
I mean, ROI is, at least in the world of AI, the speed with which it's going, I don't think the traditional structures of ROI analysis and having discussions after discussion, 10 people vetoing why we should not do it, I don't think it will work in this age of AI. I would rather invest and repent, maybe learn, than not invest and perish. So that's where it is. So there is this urge, fear of not being part of the trend that will push you in anyway. That's why I said there's no choice but jump in and then figure out how do we get benefit out of it. But if we get stuck at productivity numbers, yesterday so many numbers were here. It improves by 20%, 30%. Frankly, if we get stuck in number of hours improvement, I think ROI very soon will die down. It is just initial lift that you will get. After that, a lot of investment will come in and people will be like, now what? There should be sustained generation of value, right? ROI is that, not one time you put, once you get a good benefit, after that you remain there. So to get sustained, we have to go beyond this productivity and hours of improvement and things like that. We should unlock the value which actually, as I said, humans cannot do. Like she said, humans cannot do. Breakthrough level thinking has to come. That's when I think businesses will see as a ROI. Otherwise, it's 1 or 2 years, few headcount reduction, usage of some tools, putting up some slides. It will end there. So especially in an Indian company, like yesterday, Pari had a this one chart here. Why GDP, only 0.5% of GDP is invested in R&D, whereas South Korea is like, you showed 5.7% something. That's because there is no way to measure the value generated by R&D today. In manufacturing, it's easy. Any Indian company, you ask them to go and put 1,000 crores, it's a 30-minute decision. They will invest in manufacturing. You ask them to invest in brand, 30-minute discussion, 500 crores, get Ranbir Singh. Let get Deepika Padukone. Because for 5 years, you can get value for that. But invest in talent, invest in infrastructure, invest in GPU. Well, what do I get? It's so intangible. That's why, if we keep showing them the management, or in our own conscious also, there is this doubt, कि यार इससे मिल क्या रहा है? For the long-term benefit, what are we getting? For quick 1 or 2 years, you can show some value. So for me, that unlock will only happen when we get AI to do something that today it's humanly impossible.
That seems like a good guideline. It brings me again to Suma. I think these words might have come from my mouth first, but you agreed with me. If these capabilities way beyond current human abilities look like a CSO's dream, Chief Science Officer wants all she can find, they also must look like a CFO's nightmare. How does, I know you're not the CFO, but how does a CFO make decisions, given the kind of imperatives that Dipesh is talking about?
Do they make decisions or they just veto? Anyway.
That's a great question. So, when we look at this, again, coming back to identifying the actual use case, what are you going after, right? Yes, I am a scientist at heart, and boy, I would love to chase every different scientific venture I can out there. But as a good steward of my company's budget, we have to be sensible on what we choose. And for us, it was easy. You're looking at a long-term pipeline asset building, something that nobody else in the industry is capable of doing, something that is humanly not feasible to do. So it was honestly a no-brainer, right? So you're looking for, we heard everything from yesterday to today's several presentations and panel discussions here in terms of anything and everything, let us put AI on it. I wouldn't go down that route. It is identifying, knowing exactly what is the problem statement you're going after, what is your long-term return on that particular problem statement that you can get, right? So I'm not looking, okay, I want to identify one more target to work on this year. I'll get that. But that's not it for me. So if you take a good example, is last year, 2024, 50 new drugs were approved by the FDA. This is across the entire pharmaceutical industry, right? It's not just us, a small, mid-sized player, right? It's 50. And out of those 50, only 25 were against novel targets. So first-in-class drugs. What we now have is this asset that can unleash 25 new targets, not even in a whole year. We don't need that anymore, right? We have this engine that is capable of generating it. So for me, having this budget discussion with the CFO was actually an easy one, because this is our upfront spend, and this is going to be the impact. It's not a financial ROI, I can't put a dollar amount to it, but this is going to be our impact on our pipeline for the next 5 years. So that is an easy sell, right? We are not yet at a place where we can put a dollar amount and say, I invested $1 here today for this, and my return in 3 years is going to be 30x or 50x or 100x. I can't do that yet. But this is a business case in which we are saying, this is the best way possible, and this is what makes the best financial sense right now.
It makes me wonder, and perhaps you can answer this, Deepak, if there's any general advice that you can give, for instance, that you might give clients who are across the board, who are trying to budget for these kind of investments, ultimately buying GPUs, although not themselves.
That's it is a good paradox in terms of figuring out, okay, what that ROI conversation feels like with customers. I mean, if you are, let's say, selling anything to a customer, end of the day, they want to make a decision based on what the return is. That's just the bottom line. Now, irrespective of whether it is a AI-based tool or not, everyone looks for it. Having said that, I think what's going on in the industry, we know, like any technology, there is evolution in terms of technology that happens. When the technology is at its infant stage, you may not be able to have all the answers as far as ROIs. What we look at is also, one, internally, we look at what we refer to as a lift in terms of, how can you make improvements in certain parameters, whether that is your, developer time, whether that is efficiency, whether that is cost, whatever the case may be, and what kind of a lift are you seeing? And you measure that lift over quarters. Like consistency, exactly what Deepak talked about earlier. Is that happening? That's one way to look at it. That's something that we use internally. But when we have conversations with customers, like for example, we talked about Pega GenAI Blueprint, for example. We would actually go tell a customer that if you want to be able to create from an idea to create an application, you would otherwise take 6 months. We will get you to do it in 1 month. And that is a good conversation to have from an ROI perspective. It doesn't actually have to be X amount of dollars that you may actually have saved, but it could also be a time saving that you would do, which eventually results in your bottom line or to be able to do other things with those resources. But what we have actually seen is having those kind of conversations. We have built frameworks around that kind of conversation to be able to prove the ROI. The second thing is, like for example, especially if you have SaaS applications, you could also look at in terms of number of units. One of the things that we are experimenting in one of our products is to be able to charge based on the units that somebody uses. Essentially, you look at it as what we refer to as adaptive pricing model. And it depends on how much of the infrastructure, the AI infrastructure that you use, whether those are GPU cycles, whether those are different types of work units that you may actually relate to underneath in terms of the infrastructure, and then how do you build that? So you build a model, and then somebody goes and uses that model to be able to see what is it going to take if I build this application, what is my cost going to be? That's some of the things that we are experimenting.
That makes some sense. The sign's saying time up, but I've got a question to direct to Saurabh, who, as far as the sort of budgeting questions go, I think might have the most direct answer of all. It's sort of cutting the Gordian knot. If I understand right, you're saying that Intuit has really redefined itself as a company to be an AI company, in which case, well, it sort of solves the question, doesn't it? How much of your budget can go to AI? Is that a trick to beat all tricks?
Sure. Before I answer this question, I'm so distracted with what you said in terms of not doing the innovation in the physical space. And this 3 blades is always in my house, never use it. And we used to just live with that because that's what we thought that is going to be. And there's no innovation happening absolutely over there. I know it's time's up, but I'll probably quickly summarize a few things and learning for us. The first one is that AI is just a tech and tool. Don't start with the solution first. At Intuit, we always say that fall in love with the customer problem and then find the best way that you can solve so that you are ahead of your competitors. This is the philosophy that we follow. Instead of figuring it out that we have a way by which agentic AI works today, we went to the market to see in terms of what are the big customer problems that we can solve and that we can solve really, really well. Second one is ROI calculation in terms of Intuit is not a question right now. If you look at Intuit stock for last 5 years, it's a 150% gain. And a large part is contributed to how we have invested on AI and how we have managed to monetize the AI. Our agents that are really helping our customers, we are able to monetize that. The last thing I would say is that at Intuit, we always believe that AI is not there to replace the human effort, but it will actually amplify human intent a lot. Whatever you think you can do this, AI can help you with that. So take it as a tool, but start with the customer problem first, and then think if you can solve it really, really well.
I know we're up on time, but I just wanted to make a statement in terms of saying rather than necessarily always running behind the ROI part of it, I think looking at where we are in this journey from an AI perspective, it's also important to think about what use cases do you really go after versus when do you stop something. You've invested in something. The whole McDonald's story, I don't know how many of you remember in 2024, not too long ago, they did an experiment in terms of drive-thrus using voice recognition in their drive-thrus to be able to take the orders without a person talking to them, right? And it failed miserably. There was so much uproar in the social media that they ended up having to really stop the project. And it teaches us a few things in terms of to do it right, especially when a consumer is involved and then whatever. And how do you fail fast and then be able to move on. Sometimes the ROI may not be there, but to recognize how quickly can you make that decision and move on, I think is also as important. Just wanted to make that point.
Great, thank you. I'm not sure if I think we've run through our time. I want to thank all of the panelists and thank Zinnov and thank the audience for a great session. It's wonderful to have people from so many companies.
Thank you.